Hello and welcome back to the Vision Board Blueprints podcast, the podcast that gives you the blueprints to bring your dreams to reality. Today, we have the lovely Lianne Terry joining us, and we're going to be talking about how to bring happiness into your life. Welcome, Lianne.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi, everyone. I am Lianne. So predominantly I'm a counsellor working with people to find their happiness, to find their joy, and to work through their issues. But I am also a writer. I organise networking events, and I get involved in lots of other things, ultimately.
Amazing. So what is it that that you love about helping people find that happiness? Like what is it? Because obviously it's going to be a transformational journey, isn't it? Helping people
Absolutely,
come to
yeah.
you and they are really unhappy, and then them leaving you and them feeling happy. How does that transform? What does that feel like?
Oh, it's the most rewarding thing for me, to be honest. It's such an honor to walk with people on their journey, sort of from wherever their starting point is to wherever they leave therapy. It's such a beautiful journey, actually, and I'm a massive believer that we are all capable of real joy and real happiness, and yet there's so many of us kind of walking around not achieving that in the day to day. And it's so valuable to me to help people to do that because, as I say, I think we've all got that capacity, and sometimes it's just empowering the individual to find that ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. And I see it a lot in my own coaching that
Yeah,
people
but
come and they don't believe that they can achieve their dreams. They're not happy. They're very lethargic. And then to
mm,
see them hitting those dreams, it's such an amazing feeling to
it
be part
is.
of that
Yeah,
journey.
it
So if
is.
someone was to come to you who was feeling a little bit unhappy,
Mhm.
what would kind of be the first steps that you would take them through?
That's a really good question. I think sometimes for me, it is about firstly looking at what's making them unhappy, obviously, kind of looking at the where they're at in the here and now. But quite often, the reason that we carry sadness or unhappiness will relate to our childhood or to past things that have become patterns in our life and throughout our life. So it's kind of unpacking those patterns, taking it right back, and almost reweaving our narrative a little bit ultimately. So let me try and think of an example. So say if someone comes to therapy because they're in a really bad relationship or they've just ended a really bad relationship, like we look back at kind of the patterns of their relationships, of where that may have originated, and how we can almost do like a reset so that that pattern's broken ultimately.
Yeah, amazing. So, would you say, obviously, working through that childhood trauma is quite a big part of, learning to be happy again?
I think so, yeah. I think the things that we do as humans, and probably my biggest tip actually for finding happiness is that you have to let yourself be sad, right? So predominantly we spend our time, don't we? Almost, not all of us, lots of us spend our time kind of pushing away any uncomfortable feelings. So you might have had something that happened when you were a kid or young adult or at some point throughout your life that you've not allowed yourself to feel. But it's ultimately that thing or those things that will be weighing you down, right? So therapy is almost about pulling that out, having a good look at it, sitting with that really uncomfortable feeling that you've been avoiding for however long, and releasing it. Because the thing that we do, as I say, we push all our emotions down. We almost like compact them into like a big ball of pain. And that kind of just sits with us
Yeah.
until we look at it, feel it, and release it. So I'm a massive believer in that to access your happiness and joy, you have got to let yourself feel that sadness, pain, anger, whatever it is that it
Yeah,
looks like.
definitely. Because it will fester away and
Yeah,
it can then obviously
yeah,
turn into like physical
yeah,
pain and stuff. So
it
if we
really
keep it
can.
in our
Yes.
body, it can really turn into a physical pain. So it's really
Heavy,
important.
really heavy.
One of the things that I use myself is journaling. It's quite a big thing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I do myself to allow the feelings to feel and then release
yeah.
them through the writing.
Journaling's really powerful actually, and something that I've kind of discovered about myself recently is that sometimes it's really hard to write what you're feeling actually, but even if you can draw something or express your emotions creatively, like, because we're all different, aren't we? Not everyone can sit down with sort of pen and paper and write,
No.
but if we could express it in some way, it's of real value.
Yeah, definitely. It's really it must be such an incredible experience to see clients come to you and
Mm,
then walk away. So how do people find their happiness? Like I know we have like for me, happiness is within us and it's like we
yeah.
have to allow it to come out. We have to allow ourselves to be happy. But how do they really find it? Do they have to go and dig deep on that work? Or can people find happiness other ways?
I think it's a good question again. I think for me, you can find happiness absolutely anywhere. And I think sometimes it's about realizing that um, happiness and sadness are not necessarily in opposition, right? You can feel the two things side by side. So even on the worst day of your life, there will be something that you can draw joy from. It's just seeing it, isn't it? So I quite often give an example. So a couple of months ago, I was walking home from the school run and a car drove past me through a puddle and absolutely drenched me from head to toe, right? And so I could have taken that as like, oh my God, I'm going to have the worst day ever. This is terrible. And then I would have gone home, and what I would have experienced would have been the worst day ever because I would have been looking for the evidence, right, that I was having the worst day. And there are always things that happen in your day that you can draw that from. Ultimately, like, I don't know, you go to the fridge and there's no snacks, like
Yeah.
worst day ever, or whatever that looks like. But if you flip that narrative and instead look for the small good things, then you will have a much better day ultimately. So like on that day for me, literally I stood in the street and I was like, did that just happen? Like what the hell? And then I thought I can either go home and cry because I am head to toe drenched and freezing. My hair, I've got really curly hair, so if my hair gets wet, it just goes wild. I was like, I can either do that or I can put a bobble in. I can laugh because actually that was quite funny. And I can go home and look for the good things. And there are lots of them. And sometimes I get my clients to do things like just note down one good thing that's happened every single day, even if it's something as small as I don't know, went to the fridge and there were snacks, or I don't know, my morning at work went as it should have, or someone said I look nice, or whatever it is. Just write that thing down that's made you feel good. And the more that you get into the habit of doing that, it's like a mindset shift, isn't it? The more you get into the habit of focusing on those good things, the more good things you'll see
Yeah.
ultimately.
Because
And
it's like with the law of attraction, what we see is what we get, kind of thing.
yeah,
If we are wanting to attract something, like we sometimes play a little game inside my membership as like pick something you want to manifest today, and it's a fern. So like some people might pick a duck or a balloon,
yeah,
or but you'll see it because that's what you're
yeah,
looking for. But it's always going to
absolutely.
be there. But because you're not looking for it, you're not attracting it to you.
That's exactly it.
So
That's
it's
exactly
real, and
it.
same with like the angel numbers. The more you know what they are and understand it, the more you'll see them. Whereas if
Mm,
you're closed off to them,
then
then
you
you're
don't.
not going to see them. You're just going to go through your day with tunnel vision, and it's not going to come back, and you're not going to see what's there in front of
Absolutely.
you.
And it's sometimes it's about as well, another sort of practice that I'm a massive believer in is like gratitude. And so like I remember probably the hardest time in my life, kind of rewinding back sort of maybe 15 years. I'd just come out of a really difficult relationship that had ended really badly. My dad died around that time. I had a lot going on. Like, I wasn't enjoying my job. I was just like in a bit of a twist with everything ultimately. And I remember one day I was at my mum's and I just sat in the garden and the sun was shining and I was just like, this is really nice. Like, just being in nature, like kind of being really grateful for that moment. And even though like everything was quite crap and I was in quite a dark space, it was kind of at that time in my life that I learned to really appreciate those little moments as well.
Yeah.
For what they were, which was just actually a moment of pure joy in the midst of, and that's what I mean when I say, like, you can be really sad and still experience real joy at the same
Yeah,
time.
definitely.
And I think we get very caught up in it has to be one or the other when it doesn't at
Yeah.
all.
So other than the tip on writing down or, acknowledging one thing a
Mm.
day, what else could people start looking at to bring more happiness into their life?
I think it's sometimes thinking about what if you, so for me, right, an experience that I've had that made me really happy was a very profound kind of life-changing moment was when I went traveling in Africa. And that was about 12 years ago, and it was incredible. And when I got back from that trip, I tried to bring things that brought me joy from that trip into my day to day. So I tend to always have a lot of plants around me because I like being outside in nature, and obviously you can't always be outside, you can't always be in nature, but I like to have plants around me. Um, so it's bringing the things that make you happy into your day-to-day life, because sometimes life gets quite mundane, doesn't it? You're at work, I don't know, you get up, you take the kids to school, you come home, you work, you pick the kids up, you give them their dinner, you watch a bit of TV, you go to bed, and, rinse and repeat. So it's just bringing those little things into your day. So, like in our old house, I haven't got it here anymore, I decorated my our conservatory so that it was like Moroccan themed, and just
Oh,
being in there,
nice.
it
Yeah.
was gorgeous, but just being in there just really brought me joy and made me really happy. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes it's thinking about the things that do bring you joy and trying to just fit little bits of them into your
Yeah.
day to day.
So for me, it would be like being like white sand, clear blue
Mm,
sea, blue sky. So having that like blue summery like energy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I've got anywhere in my house that I could decorate like that, but yeah, I get what you're saying though. Like that would
Yeah,
bring
I mean, something that I do on those lines actually, me and my kids collect like a bottle of sand from every trip that we've been on, and we keep them in this like big bottle of sand that we've got at home. And just looking at that sometimes, and I'll be like, oh,
all
I
those
love
memories flood
all those
back. Yeah,
memories.
all those happy
Yes.
memories. That's lovely. That's a really nice thing to do. So is there anything else that you could recommend to somebody who is trying to bring more happiness into their life?
Mm. I think being really present in the moment, I think is probably one of my biggest pieces of advice. It's something that I found I do myself, and I talk to about a lot of my clients. Like, we all have a lot of anxiety, don't we? Well, not all of us, that's very generalizing there, but lots of us have lots of anxiety around, what's going to happen next week. What if this, what if that, even like, I don't know what we're gonna, I mean, I've this morning I've been like, oh, I'm going for tea tonight. It's trying to just step into the moment that you're in, um
And
and
stop
if that's
worrying about
not
the
worrying
future
about it.
and like what's
Yeah,
going to happen or what could happen.
yeah, and just be in the moment. Like, sometimes I'll find, like, I'm with my kids and my kids are like hilarious, and they really do bring me a lot of joy, but I'll find that like I'm with them and I'm like, oh, what's for tea, what are we going to have, what are we going to do about this, what are we going to do at the weekend, blah blah blah. And suddenly I'm like, I've not I've not been in this moment with you for the last 20 minutes. Like, come on. And I'll kind of like bring myself back into that space, and I'll focus in on what they're saying, what they're doing. I'll use all my senses sometimes. So, like, what can I see? What can I smell? What can I hear? Just to anchor me. And then I'll just appreciate the moment for what it is.
Yeah.
And I'll try
And I
and
think
step
I
out my
think we're
head
all guilty of that
ultimately.
though, aren't we, Lianne?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
all definitely guilty of trying to be organized and planning ahead
Yes.
and, not really taking us into that joyous moment.
Yeah. And it, it's getting the right balance. I'm not saying forget about the future, because obviously that's
Yeah.
important too, but it is just kind of stepping back into your
Yeah.
moment sometimes and just being like, actually, do you know, it's just really nice just to be here right now and being grateful for,
Amazing. Well, you shared lots and lots of advice with us today, especially for those who need to bring more happiness into their life and their day. What are you currently working on, or how can people find you?
Yeah, so I've got a few things in the pipeline for this year. The main thing that I'm working on is my book at the moment. So my book's due out in May, and it is about healing those childhood wounds that we kind of touched on at the beginning. It looks at, so my book is for, it's hard to explain, but is it hard to explain? I don't know. My book is for anyone who has had a relatively normal childhood, no big trauma, kind of no massive life events, just a general, fairly normal childhood. And it's looking at the damage that still sits within that, if that makes
Yes,
sense. So
that makes
from,
really sense.
yeah,
Because I think when we are a child, we're told these like, we're expected to do this, or you have to behave
exactly
a
that.
certain way. And that can actually be quite damaging
It's the
to,
little
it's
things,
the
the
little
little
things that we
things.
hold
Yeah.
on to. Because one of the things that I picked up from my own experience was I'm not very good with my weight. I've always had a bit of a up and down. I've done some yo-yo dieting, etc.
Yeah.
But when I was a child, I didn't eat very much. And I wasn't
Ah,
anorexic, but I was never,
mhm.
I was still a big child. I was never skinny as a child,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't eat school dinners.
Mhm.
And one of the dinner ladies used to make me eat my dinner.
Ah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
think that had a massive impact of the way
Yeah.
I looked at food
Yeah, it will
going
have done.
forward.
Will have done. It
So
will have
it
done.
was something that, I was then made to believe never to leave my food.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously now I don't leave food. Well, I
And
do sometimes, but it definitely impacted my inner belief of my
yeah,
eating.
it will have done. And
And although
actually, food's
it's
a big one.
yeah, although it's not a big thing, it wasn't a massive trauma, but that person told me I had to eat my food,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes. And
and
then I've carried that with you
yeah.
ultimately.
So it's little things like that
It
we were
is.
told
Yeah,
it can
absolutely.
have such a big impact on
And
our future, can't it?
it's like, so my mum was quite overprotective of me when I was a kid, and so almost didn't teach me to make decisions ultimately, because she would have kind of made them for me. And it's stuff like that, or kind of not teaching our kids to sit with those difficult feelings and teaching them to push them away. And there's lots of little things that we do, or that our parents do, that actually have a real long-term impact. So my book really kind of digs into that and looks at, I guess, attachment types, generational things.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm really excited to read it, Lianne. It sounds
Yeah,
amazing.
really excited myself about it. So
Yes.
it's out in May.
So
So a
what we
little
are
while.
going to do is we're going to drop there's no link just yet. So when this podcast go live, there won't be a link to the book, but there will be a link to get on the list ready for the book. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and then
Yeah.
when the book is out, I will amend that link so that you can go direct to the book. So really
Perfect.
excited to share that with the listeners today, because it's going to be such an incredible book. So I'm really, really excited for you, Lianne, to bring
Thank
that out.
you.
But
Thank you.
people can find you on Facebook.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, either Lianne Terry, or I've got a group called the Happiness Collective, which is kind of about mental health and well-being. So yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram as well. And more recently, I've also got a TikTok. So yeah, I'm all over the socials at the moment. So yeah,
Amazing.
please do
Well, I
connect.
will get those links in the show notes as well for the
Thank
listeners
you.
today. But before we go, I want the listeners to take one last piece of nugget from you. So what would you like to leave the listeners with to take away today? What's the one piece of advice or a golden nugget that they can walk away with?
Oh Jesus, on the spot. Let me think. I think. just coming back to what I said before, that to feel your happiness, sometimes you've got to let yourself feel your sadness as well, and that the two, you can feel them both at the same time, ultimately.
Amazing. Absolutely love that. Well, it was a lovely to have you here today,
No,
Lianne.
thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much. And all those details for Lianne will be in the show notes for you listeners. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. This YouTube video has been produced and created by myself, Lisa Williams. Please do head over and check out my best-selling book, The Vision Board Blueprints.